I massively overpaid for my first rental property, but was fortunate enough to break even. The things I learned from that deal, I'm going to teach you now so you can avoid the same mistakes that I made. I was able to learn from my own mistakes and build a 1,000 unit real estate portfolio, and I'm going to teach you how to start with your first deal, avoiding my big mistakes. I just graduated from college in April of 2003 at the University of Michigan. I'd been learning about real estate for a year or two after my neighbor back home had said to me, Paul, every wealthy person you know owns real estate. I immediately got sucked in. Finally leaving college, I was making some good money, and I had moved to Toledo, Ohio to work at a big automotive dealership over there. With that money, I said, I'm going to start buying real estate. So I started looking, and my goal was to buy for something for between $60,000 and $100,000. Now remember, this is 2003. Prices were a lot different back then, and I believed in the 1% rule. What was that rule? Your property should be able to get 1% of the property value every month in rent. So if I paid $60,000, 1% of that is $600. So I need to be able to get $600 a month in rent. If it's $100,000, $1,000 a month in rent. Now, since then, I've kind of debunked that, and there's other videos we have on that. But right here, I used this rule to start looking, and I started looking all over. Now remember, this is 2003. Real estate was getting hotter. It was before the bubble burst, but years in enough where it started to make a lot more sense. So I started looking in Toledo, Ohio, and I found a property, and I'll give you the address right here. 6038 Glenmore, 2 units, side by side. Now guys, this is not a sexy property. Here it is right here. The going rent at this property per month was $369 per side. So times 2 was $738 a month. So using the 1% rule, I sat there and said, okay, I can probably pay $73,800 for this thing, right? 738 times 100. But of course, they were asking $84,000. So a lot higher. Now, guys, I want you to remember, I was not the disciplined investor that I am today back then. I just thought you buy real estate, it goes up in value, you make a ton of money. That's all I thought. I thought I could make 20 or 25% a year, no problem. Boy, was I in for a surprise there. So after some negotiating, I got them down to $80,000. Okay. Now in my head, the property looked a little beat up. So we did an inspection and I saw some things that mattered. So I asked for a $5,000 credit at closing. So even though it still showed $80,000, I essentially paid $75,000 for the property. A little bit above what my 1% rule did. But again, I was gung-ho. I was excited. It was the property I found, I fell in love with, and the real estate agent in the deal did a smart thing. They got 4 or 5 people to show up back to back to back to view the property. So of course I sat there and said, all these people are going to buy it and take it from me. I need to jump on this now. So I went there, got under contract, got my credit, and closed. So my next step was, when I got into contract, get my financing. I did a lot of deals with Fifth Third Bank at the time. So I went to them and they offered me 6% rate. But if I did an automatic deduction from my bank, it became 5.75%. So I said, I'll do that. Now here's the kicker, 5% down payment. So on an $80,000 purchase, I only had to put $4,000 down. Because even though I got the credit at closing of $5,000, I essentially didn't have to come to the table with any money. So I sat there and said, great, $80,000, 5% is $4,000, they give me a $5,000 credit. I came to the table with nothing. Now you might think to yourself, this is great, because back then I thought it was great. I'm buying a property, it's going to cash flow, I'm going to make a ton of money, and I put practically no money down. Of course, I had to put title fees in there, loan fees, etc. So I ended up putting some money into it, but my down payment was limited to 5% that was covered by the credit. Now guys, the first major mistake most investors make that I warn against is getting too excited about the hype, finding one property and saying, I must have this property because they're excited. I see this every time with people who are buying their first property. So what's my first advice? Go look at 100 properties and find 5 or 7 you want to make offers on. You got to become immune to the properties. You can't fall in love with a specific one. You got to come in and say, these are the 5 or 7 properties I'm going to go after. Come up with a price that makes complete sense in each one and put offers out there. If they all say no, they all say no. But in all likelihood, you'll probably get counteroffers from at least half of them, which allows you to then get in the mix. If I had Real Estate Calculator back then, I would have a lot more money today. In fact, our real estate calculator we only developed for ourselves in the last 5 or 6 years, and it totally changed the way in which we buy real estate. So let's go look at a current duplex in my current market of Cleveland, Ohio, to find out using a 5% return how my returns can go. In this first analysis, I'm going to show a 25% down payment, but stay with me and I will change it to the 5% FHA down payment. Now, the reason is obviously the less down, the higher your return, but the lower your cash flow. So I'm going to show it first stable at 25% down payment and then change it to a 5% down payment. Now, here's the property in Shaker Heights. Let's go through some of the pictures. As you can tell, clean property, nice brick. I would personally probably paint that brick white, but look at this interior. Remodeled, nicely done. You can tell that somebody put some quality and care into this. Granite countertops, some nice tile floor, tile shower, surround. Look at these bedrooms with nice carpet, some decent light fixtures. Guys, this is a great rental property. It's 6 total bedrooms and 2 bath, which means it's probably 3 bed, 1 bath for each unit for 2 units. Look at this kitchen. Great kitchen. The floor is a little shiny for me, but I don't blame them. This is great. Probably well done. Look at this right here. You can tell there's a radiator there, which means this unit is a boiler building, not central HVAC. And the Shaker Heights School District is a desired school district versus the Cleveland School District, which is just a mile west, not even a mile west. Now, guys, I've started to input my information in real estate calculator. I'll go for that for 2 seconds. But the most important thing you need to understand when you put a property into real estate calculator, analyze it, is what rents are you going to get? So very simply, I went to Zillow, looked at the neighboring streets and said, what is for rent? They list this house at $1,800 per month in rent on the one we're looking at per unit. So I want to see, is that reasonable? Well, one street over, this is $1,800 a month in rent. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're asking this. This is nice, but I think the one we're looking at is nicer. It's better done, newly renovated. So I look at this saying, okay, let's buy into that $1,800 a month in rent. Let's look at some other comps in the area. This is $950 for a 2-bed, 1 bath. And again, $950. We're looking at this. Our unit is definitely a better unit. This is an older kitchen. You can tell here the uppers are older, the lowers are newer, but it's only 2 bedrooms. So I'm looking at this saying, okay, I can buy into that. This is $2,000, but it's a 4-bedroom. But let's see the quality inside. Okay, newly renovated. That looks like a lower level unit over there. 4-bed, 2-bath. So much bigger. Okay, this kind of makes me wonder, but I will tell you something very interesting. Look at the location. The property we're looking at is 2 streets over. You know, I think to yourself like, well, it's only 2 streets over. Well, yeah, but this is close to the Cleveland side, which is less desirable. So when you're right here, it is in this area, it's a lot different than being right here. So I'm going to take their $1,800 a month of rent and I'm going to accept that as their rent per unit. Now, the interesting part is when I first started in Shaker 20 years ago, renovated, that would have been a $900 per month unit. That just goes to show you the power of the devaluation of the dollar and inflation and increases in income. It'll lead to higher rental prices. So I'm back here on Real Estate Calculator. Like I said, I put some general information in here, 2 units, 4% appreciation, 10% vacancy. I put in there $299 ask price, 7% cost to sell. Now income. 3-bed, 1 bath. I don't know how many square feet it is, but let's call it 900. I'm going to put in $1,800 a month in rent. I'm not going to put any other income in there because I don't know what else I charge. I'm going to offset. They're going to pay their utilities. I'm going to assume that they cover their utilities, whether I pay it and they reimburse me or the other way around, or they pay it just directly. Now, here's the expense side. Here's the problem with Shaker Heights, Ohio. And I've had this conversation with the city many times. They've come to me, literally said, Paul, why do you buy so many properties in other cities? One thing and one thing only, property taxes. I'm going to get $1,800 a month in rent here, but I might have $1,600 a month in another city, but a lot lower taxes. And that's an issue. So we did a quick search. Guys, the property tax in this area is about 4% of the property tax value. That's absurd. I love the allure of Shaker. They got a lot of great homes, some great estates. But guys, this is going to hurt the city People think, oh, it's just hurting the owners. No, it's hurting renters too. Because if I'm a landlord and my taxes go up this much, I got to cover it that way. So I'm putting a 4% tax rate in there, which means if I pay ask price, that immediately is $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month. Okay, management fee. I'm going to manage it myself. So I'm not going to put a management fee in there. Leasing commission, lease it myself. Insurance. Insurance gotten crazy lately. I'm going to call it $1,000 per unit. Now maintenance staff. Guys, you're probably going to do the maintenance yourself, but let's say you have to hire somebody and pay them $25 an hour cash, okay? Let's assume in a year period, they have to go out there and do 6 work orders per unit, and the average work order takes 2 hours. That's a total of 12 times 2, 12 hours per unit times 2 is 24 hours times $25. Let's just call it $750 total for the year. Let's call it $400 per unit. Leasing staff, you're going to do it yourself. Property management, you're going to do it yourself. Maintenance and repair. Now, let's say you're spending $100 for every maintenance thing they call you for. So we had 12 total maintenance calls for the year. So $1,200. So per unit, $600. I had $1,200 divided by 2 units. And I basically did $100 in materials for every unit call I had. What's the exact number? Some people put percentages in there. I like to break it down per unit. Now, advertising, guys, Zillow's free. You can put a sign up. Craigslist is free. You can rent properties out now for free. So I'm putting nothing in there. Nothing for accounting and legal. Landscape, cutting the grass. 30 cuts a year, $40 per cut. We'll call it $1,200. Snow plowing, call it 10 pushes a year at $50 per push. We'll call it $500. Gas, they're going to pay it. Electric, they're going to pay it. Water, they're going to pay it. Now, capital expenditures. Now, guys, you might sit there and say, well, the place is brand new. It's just renovated. Right. But there's a boiler there. There's all these other things there you have to account for. So over time, let's say every 10 years, you have to put $15,000 into the property. That is per unit. That's $1,500 per year divided by 2 is $750 per unit. And miscellaneous, I'm going to call it $750 per unit in miscellaneous, $1,500. All right, so I'm looking here going, that's a total of $10,000 per unit per year in expenses. All right, it's a lot. Now, mortgage. Like I said, 75%. I'm going to call it 7% interest, 30-year amortization, and the refinance. The end of year 8, I'm going to refinance 1% fee, 75%. Interest rate, I'm going to keep 7% and do a 30-year amortization. Now, you might be wondering, well, Paul, how do you know the interest rate's going to be 7%? I don't know. But I have to put something in there. And for me, 6 or 7% seems about right. It might be higher, it might be lower. The benefit is if it goes higher, it's probably harder for people to buy houses. So your rents are going to be higher. If it's lower, you're going to save on the mortgage, but you're probably not going to get as much rental growth. These are all just assumptions I'm making. And I'm going to do the same thing in year 16, 1, 75%, 7, and 30 years. Finalize the deal. So I'm looking at this, guys, and this is my recap. Revenue, expenses, NOI, value of the property came out to exactly what I paid for it. So this is good. Cash flow of 300 and it grows every year. And look at this. In year 8, we refinanced and got a $100,000 check from that refinance. So to view the IRR, I'm looking at this IRR of 15%. Guys, I didn't even try to do this. It just came out exactly like this, 15%. This is what's so great about our tool. If I had had this back in the day, this would have saved me so much money because I broke even on my property. This will not break you even. This will help you. But remember, garbage in, garbage out, good in, good out. You've got to put reasonable assumptions in there. And that's what I'm here to teach you on this channel. What are the reasonable assumptions? Now, you see these cash flows here. 300, 1,046, 1,803, 2,592, 3,412, blah, blah, blah. Now, let's change our down payment from LTV of 75% to 95%. Look how the cash flow changes. But you put less down now. What's our IRR now? 19.75%. You can tell the IRR skyrocketed, and I didn't change the future down payments. So when you refinance, you're going to sit there and get some money out. But you have to put more down payment down, but the value's gone up so much that the down payment's going to be covered by the extra equity you have in the property if everything goes according to plan. So you can really increase your IRR, decrease how much money you put down. Look at this, $17,800 you have to put down here. At 75% LTV, $77,000. A massive difference. You can now buy 5 properties instead of 1 if you put 5% down. So the common question is going to be, well, Paul, how much do I need to get started? Well, if you do a 5% down payment, taking this LTV back to 95%, $18,000 for a $300,000 property. By the way, this basically tells me I'd probably be buying this property if I were starting out, which is kind of amazing. But $18,000 to down payment. Well, guys, this is one area I do believe in an emergency fund. I sit here and say, well, my expenses are $10,000 per unit, it's $20,000 per year. I want to have probably 1 year of expenses in the bank on top of this. So plus $20,000, $38,000. And guys, I don't care what income you make, you're probably closer to this than you think. There's other ways to raise the money than yourself. The first property I bought, that one in Toledo, in Sylvania, Ohio, one of the guys I was competing against, I remember him talking about his investors. And I said to him, who are your investors? He goes, it's a group of 5 buddies. We all get together, we put $5,000 a year into a pot, $7,000 a year into a pot, and we buy properties with it. Our goal is to buy 1 or 2 units a year. I remember thinking to myself, that's awesome. So I said, how do you divide management? He's like, we divide management accordingly. One person's the manager, one person's the finance guy, other 3 are silent investors, and we pay each other accordingly. And I thought to myself, that is brilliant. But guys, if you're able to do one of these deals every year, in 20 or 30 years, you will have tens of millions of dollars in real estate sitting there. It's just math. Now, remember, you are going to be negatively cash flowing here. So you got to factor that in. It's going to be decreasing. And by the time you get to your first refinance is when your cash flow is going to go down. But you're also paying down debt. This cash flow is not your profit and loss. This cash flow, as you can tell, you're paying down about $3,000 a year or $4,000 a year in debt. So your overall net cash with your debt is about even. And remember, you can put more than 5% down. You can put 25%, you can put 20%, you can put 50%, all these things you can do. What's most important is what makes sense to you. But guys, do me a favor, follow this channel because I learned a lot of mistakes buying my first 1,000 units, and they apply whether you're buying 100 units or 1 unit. They're all the same mistakes. Now guys, if you have a great 5% down payment loan, you might sit there and say, why should I ever pay it off? So let's see what the returns would be if I never refinance my property. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete the refinance here. So I'm keeping my mortgage forever, but I'm doing my 95% LTV, 7% 30-year AM. We have our negative cash flow here. We have our $18,000 down negative cash flow, but it starts to go positive. Remember before, at 5% down payment, we had a 19.5% IRR. It's now 17%. You might be like, well, wait a second, but it's that 5% loan. Yes, but we're not refinancing because if you remember, in that year 8 refinance, we got a check for $42,000. In IRRs, the more money you get earlier, the higher your IRR goes. So it all depends on what your style is because in 20 years, you're only going to owe 160 in a property that's worth 640,000. Or you can be like me, who doesn't mind every 7, 8, 9 years refinancing, take a lot of equity out, tax-free, buying more properties and keep operating. It's completely up to your style. I know some people say, Paul, I'm 35. I want to buy a property a year and have as many paid off when I'm 65. And that way I can live off that. More power to you. You're going to get less return, but if you sleep better at night, that's what matters. So guys, if you want to learn on how to get the proper loan for your property, there's a lot of pitfalls there, a lot of hidden fees. Watch our next video that we're going to do based on how to get the right loan for your property.